You know, for decades, physicists have been chasing one of the biggest prizes in all of science, a theory of everything. Just imagine, a single elegant framework that could describe every single force and particle in our entire universe. Well, today we're diving deep into the leading candidate for that theory, which also happens to be the most controversial one, string theory.
So right at the heart of modern physics, we've got this huge conflict. On one hand, we have general relativity. It's Einstein's masterpiece, and it beautifully describes the universe on the grandest scales imaginable. We're talking planets, stars, galaxies, the very fabric of space-time. Then, on the other hand, we have quantum mechanics, which is just as successful at describing the bizarre, probabilistic world of the super small. Atoms, particles, you name it. The problem? These two theories are completely incompatible. They literally speak different mathematical languages and describe two totally different realities.
So here's the question, right? What happens when you try to describe something that is both incredibly massive and incredibly tiny? Think about the singularity at the center of a black hole. Well, when you try to use our current theories there, the equations just break. They completely fall apart, spitting out nonsensical answers like infinity. And this isn't some minor glitch, folks. This is a deep, fundamental crisis in physics. Finding a single theory that can unite these two worlds is probably the biggest challenge of our time.
Okay, so to get why string theory is such a big deal, we got to look at the old way of thinking. For pretty much a century, our standard model of physics, which is incredibly successful by the way, has treated the fundamental building blocks of our universe, things like electrons and quarks, as just points. Infinitesimally small, zero-dimensional dots with properties like mass and charge, but no actual size, no internal parts, just points.
String theory comes along and just throws that entire idea right out the window. It proposes something truly radical. What if, it asks, when you zoomed in way, way, way past what we can see, you didn't find a point? What if instead you found a tiny, one-dimensional, vibrating loop of energy, a string? And that single, simple change is the foundation for absolutely everything that followed.
Now, this is where it gets really cool. Think about a guitar string. A single string can produce a whole range of different musical notes just by vibrating in different ways, right? Well, according to string theory, these fundamental strings do the exact same thing. A string vibrating in one particular pattern might appear to us as an electron. If it vibrates in a different pattern, poof, it looks like a photon. Vibrate it another way, and you get a quark. All the different particles we see in the universe aren't different things at all. They're just different notes being played on the same fundamental string.
And this leads us to the theory's biggest triumph, its home run. Because within this whole symphony of vibrations, the math shows that one specific note naturally pops out, a particle with the exact properties of something called the graviton, the long-sought-after hypothetical quantum particle of gravity. And this is huge. For the first time ever, gravity isn't this weird outsider force. It's an essential built-in part of the exact same framework as everything else. This is what makes string theory a theory of quantum gravity.
But, and this is a big but, this incredibly beautiful idea comes with a really strange price. For the math of the theory to work, for it to be consistent and not fall apart, the universe can't just have the 4 dimensions we all know and love, 3 of space and 1 of time. Nope, superstring theory demands that the universe actually has 10 space-time dimensions. So you're probably asking, okay, where are these other 6 dimensions then? Well, the theory suggests they are compactified. That means they're curled up on themselves at a scale so unimaginably tiny that we can't possibly perceive them in our day-to-day lives. The classic analogy, and it's a good one, is a garden hose. If you look at it from really far away, it just looks like a one-dimensional line. But if you were a tiny ant walking on it, you'd find a whole other dimension you can walk around, its circumference. The idea is our universe could be just like that, with extra dimensions hidden from our view.
So the quest for one single theory of everything, well, it hit a bit of a snag. By the mid-1990s, instead of finding one unified theory, physicists had come up with 5 of them. 5 different, mathematically consistent versions of superstring theory, and each one described a slightly different universe. It was a confusing mess, to be honest. Was only one of them right? Were they all wrong? What was going on?
So after this first big boom back in the 80s, the whole field was kind of stuck, facing this crisis of having 5 competing theories. But then, in 1995, a physicist named Edward Witten stood up at a major conference with an idea that would ignite what they now call the second superstring revolution and completely reshape the entire field.
Witten dropped this bombshell idea. He argued that those 5 theories weren't competitors at all. He proposed they were just 5 different ways of looking at a single, deeper, and even more mysterious 11-dimensional theory. He gave it a name,
M theory. The idea is kind of like looking at a can. From the top, it looks like a circle. From the side, it looks like a rectangle. They seem like different things, but they're just different perspectives of the same object.
And just how mysterious is this M theory? Well, even the guy who came up with it, Witten, was a little cagey about the name. As you can see, he said the M could stand for membrane, which is another key object in the theory, but he also cheekily suggested it could stand for magic or mystery. I mean, that's a pretty clear sign that even the architects of this thing don't fully understand what they're dealing with.
But for all its weirdness, you have to understand this theory has had some absolutely incredible successes on a theoretical level. For instance, it can actually derive the famous Bekenstein-Hawking formula, which is all about the amount of information lost inside a black hole. String theory provides a way to count the tiny quantum states that make up that information. It also builds these powerful mathematical bridges between gravity and other areas of physics, proving it's not just wild guesswork. This framework solves real, deep problems.
But now we get to the theory's biggest, most daunting problem. A number so ridiculously large, it's hard to even wrap your head around it. 10 to the power of 500.
So what is that number? Well, that's the estimated number of different ways those extra dimensions can be curled up. And here's the kicker. Each different shape creates a different universe with its own unique set of physical laws. This is what's known as the string theory landscape, a vast cosmic landscape of 10 to the 500 possible universes. With that many possibilities, how on earth do we find the one that describes our specific universe? It makes generating a single, unique, testable prediction almost impossible.
And this all leads us to the major criticisms you hear today. First and foremost, it's not testable. The kind of energy you'd need to actually see a string is trillions of times greater than what our most powerful particle accelerators can even dream of. Second, some critics argue it isn't truly fundamental because it often has to assume a pre-existing spacetime to work in rather than creating spacetime from scratch. And finally, there's that landscape problem we just talked about. If your theory allows for almost any outcome, what does it really predict? Which leaves us with the ultimate question, the one that physicists are still fiercely debating right now. Is string theory's incredible mathematical power and elegance pointing us towards a final theory of everything? Or does its vast landscape of possibilities mean it's become so flexible that it's actually a theory of anything, unable to make the kinds of concrete predictions that are the bedrock of science? The quest, as they say, continues.